look lovely today, bright and cheery.
I do? Oh, thank you. I put this on. It's got to get washed still, but it's the Saratoga Invitational. It's not mine. I bought it for Hannah, but I thought I'd
Aw,
wear it.
yay. Oh my gosh, tell me all about it from the start to the finish.
Sure. Oh my gosh, yes. So you probably, I don't know what the weather was like in Rochester this weekend, but it was pretty miserable
Oh
here.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's like when you're like, okay, I don't know, there's probably going to be at least some races canceled, if not the whole thing.
Yeah.
It all went off as far as I know. There was
Oh,
no canceled races, which is crazy considering like all the crazy weather we had, but I mean, everyone was safe, so that's good.
mhm.
So I had signed up at the beginning of the season or a couple weeks ago actually, to help out with the food tent. So but I signed up alongside a couple. So they've been kind of taking over a lot of the cooking, the buying of stuff. I mean, they've done so much work. And then the couple that did it last time had already like had a good system and like anyway, it's kind of been carried down to the next group. What I've been doing is to just help whenever I can, because they've got most of the stuff and they've been transporting most of the stuff. So I grabbed the tents because we have two big tents for the team. And Chris and I went up on Friday and set them up. So we set them up in the same spot that Chen was last year. And, as I don't know if you've ever really been involved with the food tents or just been curious, but like
Yeah.
now that I'm involved, I'm like scoping out what everyone else is doing, checking out their setups, like what are they making for food, any good ideas you can steal.
Yep.
So there was that component of this weekend. So that made things like it was a learning experience for sure. So that was its own thing that was happening alongside all the rowing. So so we got that set up and then and I got to see Eric Catalano so that he was my one of my first coaches ever.
Mhm.
And now he's like head honcho up at Saratoga rowing and Orion rowing. So it was
Love
kind
it.
of fun to just see him, but he was very busy, so I didn't get a chance to chat with him too much. And then so Hannah had two races on Saturday and one race on Sunday.
Yep.
She was in a junior women's double, and then not a junior, well, girls slash women's quad later in the day. And then on Sunday she was in the girls four
Okay.
with coxin. So she's very nervous. She always gets very nervous. Even when she was a swimmer and she was little, she would just get so hyped up for the first race. And I usually got the jitters out once we got the first race underway, which always kind of helped when there was like a scrimmage to start things off. But we haven't had any of those. I think I was
Mhm.
listening to our podcast that released yesterday.
Mhm.
And so I definitely have some things that I want to talk about in
Mhm.
relation to that.
Yeah.
So I'll get to that. But um so anyway, so we didn't have a scrimmage, so that was like all of the kids' first races of the season, which
Right.
Saratoga Invitational is smaller than states,
Mhm.
but the teams you're competing against are gigantic. Some of them they are like big club teams for the most part.
I know Pittsburgh
You
had
know,
sent some kids down there. I think they may have taken their team down.
yes.
Yeah. So,
So yeah, so Pittsford was like our goalpost, I think, for a lot of things because they are also a scholastic team. They
mhm.
also will be racing at states, and they're not somebody that we're near. So like, it's kind of nice to see what the other side of the state's up to, and like like, and they tend. I think they were in quite a few of the races that our kids were in. So that was good because other than Pittsford, Niskuna, Burn Hills, I think Fayetteville Manlius was there. I don't think they were in any of our races, but I saw the tent at one point. I did not run into Dave.
Okay.
Um, there wasn't that many other New York State teams that I
Mhm.
saw that were there. But it's just kind of good to see like how you can compete against other scholastic teams, even though that Invitational isn't like, there's no reason to worry about if you're scholastic or not. They're all
Yeah.
kind of mixed in together. So um, so Hannah's first race was the double. She was really excited about the double because her and the other girl that were in it They just like kind of were taking it kind of as like a chill approach to the whole thing, and they're
Yeah.
excited about it. And then the senior girls that are were in a double, they were in the race before right before them. So they were in the final two for the just the varsity double. And
Mhm.
then the our girls were in the first final for the next race. So they were back to back. Okay, so I'm gonna jump right in here with my Kate rant.
I
This
love
is
it.
gonna go this is gonna go off of something I said in the last podcast,
Alright.
which is I gave all the props to Saratoga, and maybe this is misaimed, but I'm just gonna say it. Like the one thing I always thought Saratoga and the venue did well
Mhm.
was the live stream. And I felt that the live stream was their redeeming quality, that they did such a good job with this free service,
Mhm.
and it provided a way that people could actually watch the race because the venue itself provides no way to watch the race during the race for
Yeah.
the 2Ks or the 1500s.
Yeah.
Like I said, you can stand on the bridge, you can see the after they finish, you can see them coming towards you, but
Mhm.
there is no viewing of that race during the race. And I'm not saying that's their fault. Like that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And I always felt that they had this redeeming quality, that they did such a nice job with the live stream. Plus, I will add, we would always have grandparents that would want to come watch, family members that would want to come watch, and would say, "We would love to see you there. But by the way, parking is crazy. There is a shuttle, which is nice, but you're not going to be able to see much, you
Mhm.
know? And if you watch the live stream from your comfort of your couch at home, where it's not raining,
Mhm.
where it's not windy, where you can
Yep.
actually see things and understand who's who, that is like the ideal spot to watch, okay?
Mhm.
And it was always free.
Mhm.
But now it is not free.
Oh,
And
no.
this is my rant, and I did a little digging into it yesterday just to
Right.
make sure I wasn't saying anything that was like completely off the rails. But it looks like it's US Rowing has contracted with this one company
Oh,
to do all of the live streaming for rowing events.
yeah.
So I looked up the company. It's like overnight without the I in there. So it's like very easy to mistype and kind of annoying. You can tell I am really not happy about this whole thing. Um, and it looks like they have like recordings from other races that US rowing sanctions that are on there too. So they charge 11.99 if you just want to pay for the month, right? And like, come on, that's like a Netflix subscription. Well, actually, I don't know what my Netflix is now, but I mean, it's high. Like when you consider like, is grandma gonna spend? I mean, yeah, probably, but like that's what
Yeah.
makes me mad too. Like, is there actually value in 11.99 for watch like okay, not even 8 minutes for a 1500, right? Like a 7 minute race, and I it's anyway, yeah. So now it looks like yeah, so now I'm thinking like, okay, this is just like where does this go outside? So like rowing is already not accessible for people, right?
Mhm.
People tell me, that had kids that rowed that don't, they're like, it's a terrible sport to watch. Like, I have no idea what's going on as a parent. Like, we're just making it that much harder for people to embrace rowing, to understand rowing, to support rowers if you're not a rower. Like this is just going against so many things that like you and I talk about and what I think a lot of rowers agree with, that like this would not this adds another obstacle for people to get introduced to the sport. Why would we do that? And I understand obviously there's a reason that they did this. I'd hope to again appeal to their better angels of the
Mm,
sport to say, okay, well maybe we don't need to make X, Y, and Z amount of money. Like maybe we can charge a little bit more for the race fees
mm,
to say, I'm glad everybody really likes the live stream that's
mhm.
free, but that is very costly for us to run, which I'm sure it is.
Oh, yeah.
Um, like let's if you want this, like this is our like if you didn't like the page, like maybe we can do this as a happy medium. Like, I know nobody's going to care what I think, but I'm just putting it out there. We have a
I
very small
agree.
audience. Like,
If there's
I
something that
feel
we
very
could do.
passionately about this.
Yep, yep, I agree because
Yeah.
like you said, there's,
Yeah.
like, not a lot of accessibility to our sport, and then creating another barrier for someone to easily, like, hop on and just watch it. Like, I mean, is it something that, we would as coaches and teams would absorb the cost of? Maybe as part of the registration fee, it but then gets bundled into what the actual regatta is paying, and it's not passed off to grandmas and grandpas who are watching on at home. I mean, that's tough. At
So,
Saratoga Invitational,
yeah.
should we talk
So
more
the rant,
on
I think I'm done with, I
okay,
think I
do you wanna
finished my
talk more about
rant. But I think that the point is that, if possible, like the live stream, maybe we didn't appreciate it while we had it. But I also think like I would watch it back to see Hannah's race when I was there in person, to
Yeah,
see like the commentators talk about it later when I had good internet. That was the other thing, is that I actually considered it about 3 times paying for the 11.99. Um, but there's literally no internet where I was. Like I couldn't even send text from the food tent. Like nothing worked. So I certainly wasn't going to be paying to not be able to use it when I'm sitting there, right? So
yeah.
I'm sure like anybody who was home would have been able to watch it and have internet. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I mean, even I would love to watch what, but the problem is they did have the TV set up in the tents. So we were able to see that. Again, that's a little bit easier than, watching the end of the race. But the screens, like first of all, the TV out in the big tent went out. There was another TV in a smaller tent that we were watching from, that when that one was out. Um, there was just all kinds of water on the screen, so like you couldn't really see much at times. It wasn't ideal, so like I would have been mad if I had paid because like the quality wasn't great either.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's just, it's a huge disappointment because it actually made rowing kind of fun again, to like watch the race from beginning to end, to watch them in their stake boats. Although, like when we were watching Hannah get lined up, I told her later, I'm like, we got to watch you while you were sitting up there. She's like, oh my God, I was like mortified because it's like, and I could totally relate, like
Mhm.
that like we were talking about one time, like the live stream where we go back to when it was, we didn't have it, like that beginning of the race, like there are so many emotions and like nerves that you are dealing with at that point. So I don't know if I would have wanted those cameras on me, but like she happened to be in the middle lane, so like it was on her for a good chunk of it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, oh my God, like, but I was like, you did good, like I saw you, I saw Noelle was the bow, like she was
Mhm.
getting her point, and then they were like locked in. They were like,
Oh,
okay, we're ready, like no fooling around, no, like, do 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 do, like they were locked in. And
wow.
so her doubles race, she said, was fabulous. Like they had such a good row, which was so good to hear because getting all nervous, I get nervous that she's gonna like get in her head, that things are gonna go wrong because she's just flustered or, worried, or letting everything kind of like take over. But she said it was great. They rode their quad later in the day, and it, I think they had a good race, but they haven't practiced as a quad, and they're really two distinct doubles that are rowing in one quad together. So I think they just didn't gel very well. But like the girls do, it's just that lineup for whatever reason, and the quad didn't. But the next day in the four, they had a great race. Same girls plus the coxswain. They got third. I mean, they were really happy with it. And they were like, it was so weird. Like they got, I don't remember what their time was, but it was maybe like 30 or 40 seconds slower in the quad than the four was the next day.
Oh, you would think
So,
it'd be, like, the other way around, but
yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely conditions played a factor in that too, but I think just in overall, like they just had a better race as a boat on Sunday. And yeah, but the oh God, we had like every condition possible other than cold, I would say. It really wasn't too cold.
Mhm.
But it rained all day, like buckets on Saturday. And that's the other thing with that venue is that the good thing about it is that they do have it down to a science. Like I don't know if you remember, like you drive in right there, they got all the people at the crosswalk, like
Mhm.
don't cross now, you can cross now. One-way traffic, you got your parking area in the back, you got your bus area, you got your loop to drop off athletes that goes through the food tent area. I mean, it's all like down to a science. But when you add in rain on those, like it's like you get either you get the rain with just like puddles that last forever and mud, or you get I don't remember which, it might have been the fish last year or this past fall, where it's just dust.
Ugh.
It's like if
Yeah.
it's dry and windy, it's just like cloud dusts, and your eyes are killing you by the end of the day. So yeah, so that it was just like mud, like my car was just caked in mud, my boots were caked in mud. And then the next day was just wind, like lots of wind, which is always fun when you're dealing with food tents
Oh, yeah.
and like open flames. Yeah, we had a little incident with the paper plates catching on fire at one point, but everybody was okay. It's all good.
That's so weird that you mentioned fire. I don't know what it is about this week. We had an oven fire on Sunday, and then and
Ouch.
then my
Oh
kids,
no.
they were at school yesterday, someone pulled the fire alarm, and then now you're mentioning the paper plates being on fire. I don't know what it is about fire. We are kind of in a fire week.
Oh
It's just
boy.
yeah, it's
Knock on wood.
weird. Yeah, yeah.
Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah,
Hopefully
our
you
oven
got it
was
out
like
of the
yeah, our oven
system.
yeah, our oven had it was like we had to call the fire department because it wouldn't go out.
Oh
Like
geez.
yeah, we, like, used our little kitchen extinguisher, still wouldn't put it out, and it was, like, the electrical component, so it was heading back to where the
Oh.
electrical comes into the stove, and we were just worried that it was gonna keep going through that.
Hmm.
So, we called them in, they're like, "Yeah, it's good that you guys used it because if it had gone into the electrical into the house, like, that would have been it. The whole place woulda potentially gone up." So, yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's so crazy. The oven has been here since we've been here, so I don't know if it's, like, original to the house, and the house is, like, 20 years old. So I
Hmm.
guess it was time, but, like, yeah, it was so disappointing. I made, like, a whole dinner. Like, I made, like, a casserole and roasted vegetables, all this stuff. We get it out to the table, and then my husband's like, "I think the stove is on fire." I was like, "What?" And then we're like, then we didn't think what we should have done was taken the food outside because we left the pot
Oh.
at the table. And so then we sprayed the extinguisher stuff, and then the fire walk
Oh.
came in and sprayed extinguisher our whole dinner covered in
Oh.
extinguisher dust.
Hmm.
Of course.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, it was a bummer, but yeah.
So so it sounds like it was more of an electrical, like it came in through the oven, so nothing in the oven that
Well,
caused the fire?
I don't know if it was like the actual electrical component, like, broke and
Mm.
started burning out, like, so I don't know. I mean, it's probably just age. I mean, like I said, they're
Yeah.
super old. I mean,
Mhm.
unless it wasn't original to the house, but even if it was, not original to the house, it's at least 8 to 10 years old, so,
Mm.
yeah, we hadn't had I mean, like, we had, like, minor problems with it, but nothing like that, so, yeah, we almost burned
Yeah.
the house down.
Oh my gosh.
Luckily, knock on wood, we were, like, the least of the worries is just, like, you throw the oven out, you
Mhm.
get a new one.
Mhm.
Everybody's fine, everybody was safe. Um, yeah, so I
Yeah. Oh boy. Yes, everyone is safe at the food tent too, luckily. But just
yeah, we'd have to have
yeah.
a podcast just about food tents because it is an art. It is an art
I
form.
agree.
I don't know if
Yes.
we know anybody. I'm trying to think if I know any food tent aficionados. We need to find somebody
Well,
who's
so
been doing tenting for a long time, like somebody who's
I ran into someone that rode for UB. And well, actually, it's a UB couple, actually. So, do you remember Todd Danko and Karen O'Connell?
The names
So
sound familiar. I can't place
Todd's
place
your year.
Okay, alright.
Yep. And then Karen, I think was your year or my year. I can't remember. She only rode for like a season. It might have been your senior year. But
Okay.
so so Todd was in a ski and a rower. So I knew Todd from high school. And then he went to UB a year before me. Um, and they have two girls and they're rowers. So their tent was right next to ours. I ran into Karen. And so this is going out in the universe, Karen. I already talked to her about it too. So, but I said, maybe you can get on, and she's like, "Oh, I don't feel like I could. I haven't rode that long, you know." And I was like, "Karen, like we just chat about
Yeah.
stuff. So you'd be great." But I think she has been involved with the food tent. I don't know if she was, but I saw her there a lot. So I think she's, knows enough. She's been involved with Niski running for a few years now. And I do have to say they had quite a nice setup. I was calling their tent the red carpet to the ballroom because they had it set up with like two tents that were this way, almost like a T.
Okay.
And then they had those what I call like T-ball chairs, like benches or whatever,
Oh, yeah,
like the
the beats, yeah.
accordion.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then they got all the chairs, the seating that's like right next to each other. They had three or four of those along the side of the two tents that go in.
Wow.
And then at the end, they had the two big tents with like the buffet set up. It was a nice setup, I have to say. Like props to Niski. You guys did good. Um, yeah, so I think we could probably have her talk about the food tents a
Yeah.
little bit.
That's
And she
awesome.
actually saved the paper plates. Not that we needed to save the paper plates, but she stopped them from causing a bigger fire. Smart UB engineer.
Mhm.
UB not so smart, just standing there watch it happen. She swooped in from the tent next door and grabbed them and then found a puddle. It was like, "Oh,
That's
Karen,
awesome.
thank you." But yeah, so yeah, but I think you're right. I think having the food tent set up is like, and there are some teams that really do it right.
Mhm. And it's all about, like, the type of food that you pick, and not just
Yeah.
the type of
Yep.
food that you pick, but, like, how you plan on people, like, eating it and going somewhere with it. Like,
Yes.
I know,
Yeah.
at one point, one of the dads had come up with the idea of, like, getting, like, larger coffee cups, like, tall coffee cups, and then having things, like, that could go, like, on top of each other so that you could kind of, like, walk around with a cup and eat it with a like
Oh,
they were getting fancy with it. So, like
yeah.
that I always think of back in the day of, like, just, like, a bag of bagels and or
Yeah.
bagel cutters and a
Yep.
jug of peanut butter with a knife in it that looked disgusting by the end of the day because everybody was just smearing it on every type of bagel and just like the very low tax
Hmm.
type of experience all the way up to, like, griddles and
Yep.
this food and then transitioning to, like, cooking Slovaki in the afternoon, like, people just go crazy with all
Hmm.
the different ideas for food tents, so I'd love to yeah, we definitely need to
Hmm.
get somebody on here to talk about the ins and outs of, rowing food tenting because you're there all day,
Yeah.
breakfast, lunch, and dinner for some of these
Hmm.
regattas, and
Yeah.
some of these teams do it just right,
Yeah.
food trailers and
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
an art form.
Yeah, we definitely had some learning experiences, and it's interesting the way our schedule was too, and it's hard to figure out like when is it ideal to start cooking. And when you're not used to cooking for that quantity and in that setup, like the pasta took forever. So like the first day they did the chicken on the grill and then the rice. So they had the rice was cooking. That worked. I was not there because I stayed home with Keegan on Saturday. Chris had to work on Sunday. So when I came home, he said, "I'll take Hannah because I can see one of her races." So he took her up there. So I didn't actually see what happened with the food tent in the afternoon, but they said the next day that the chicken and rice worked much better in that situation. It was quicker. Everyone was happy with it. Like, and it's kind of a nice meal where it's not too heavy, but still nutritious.
Yep.
And so but easy enough to make. And then the next day was meatballs and pasta. the meatballs were frozen, so they took a long time to heat up on the grill. Plus, like it was windy, there was rain at one point. It just made it really difficult, and the pasta took forever. And then it just gets like congealed and like tough
Yeah.
to scoop. And yeah, so I think we're sticking probably mostly with the chicken and rice until we come up with maybe Slovakia or something else. I don't know, like come
Yeah.
up with an alternative. But
I've seen a lot of like
yeah.
the crock potty kind of like chili idea.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
when I was with Mercy, because it's girls, because they'll eat salad. Guys, the boys never eat the salad, but the girls will eat the salad, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
For like fresher vegetables, fresher fruit, and that type of stuff worked for the
Yeah.
girl team. I know for boys teams, it tends to be a little bit more hearty, is what they're looking for. You know what I mean?
Right.
They'll eat the breads and they'll eat the meat and those type of
Hmm.
things, but, yeah, you kinda have to know your crowd too, like, I have
Yeah.
to bring just the athletes? Are you serving the athletes and a bunch of parents? And,
Mhm.
how many volunteers do you have running through there? What type of refreshments are you gonna do? Are you gonna do one of those Gatorade things? Are you gonna do, like, individual water bottles? How are you recycling?
Right.
Like, it's like, it's like
Hmm.
this whole, like,
Right.
snowball of like, trash carrying in and carry out. Like, where are you going to put it? What kind of can are you bringing? Like, it's like, it becomes very, very involved. And,
Oh yeah.
like
And
you
just
said,
yeah, transporting everything. And then we were talking about Stotesbury, which is just its own challenges, right? Like, so Saratoga, again, bonus for Saratoga is that generally speaking, everything's pretty safe where it is. Like,
Mhm.
you're not going to find a lot of people like disturbing your stuff. I would think so. I mean, you can never be sure, but like, I don't think we've ever had any incidents of that. Like, if you're leaving stuff there, obviously in between the 2 days. But in Stotesbury or in Philly, and like, like you have to be really careful. Plus, it is not easy to drop stuff off. I mean, they have that locked down with a police presence. Like, you cannot drive through that area. So depending on where you're at, like, what I think I'm gonna do is invest in one of those wagons, like the wheeling
Oh
wagon
yeah,
kind of
the
things.
accordion. Yeah.
Like we had the accordion, they had the collapsible ones. Like when our kids were little, we had like the hard plastic ones. Like,
Yeah.
but that idea, but like the collapsible ones, I think, because I mean, just generally speaking, it's nice to have like if you go to the beach or something. But I think for this situation, it would really help because you're usually walking with a bunch of stuff, and
Yeah. And
if you
does
need to do that,
Stokesbury
is not
do
easy.
like, is Stotesbury, like, head of the Schuylkill where they give out, trailer passes and, food truck passes? Like, I remember, like, as a coach, I remember, like, getting the whole packet and then realizing that I was like, "Oh, crap. I gotta figure out who's gonna actually be driving the food truck or the food trailer." And,
Yeah.
like, and then get them that pass before you left for Philly, like, so that I didn't have to meet
Right.
them in Philly. Like, it's definitely a coordination logistics nightmare, when you have that much, like, it's good because they limit the amount of people who are there's aren't
Yeah.
people everywhere,
Hmm.
but because of that, you really have to plan ahead. You really have to know who's doing what, know when that packet's gonna show up in the mail. I think they probably let you print them out now, but,
Hmm.
yeah, because I remember they used to have, like, a hang tag, like, and there were a couple coaches tags, like, so, like, as a coach, I could bring my car down, but, like,
Hmm.
you know, it would always be like a catch-22, like, if you brought your car down and you parked close, there's the potential that if just in case everything finishes up early, you won't be able to get out because 'cause you'll be being locked in by other coaches' cars, or
Yeah.
you know that you're gonna be there all day, doesn't matter, like, it's nice to have the car close just in case you have some downtime where you can go and, like, sit in your car and warm up or not have to bring every piece of clothing and have your own little like,
Hmm.
makeshift, like, station or home. Like, I remember some of these regattas, like, I would have to bring, like, 3 or 4 different bags of, like, clothing for myself, extra things for, that I wouldn't put on the trailer, but I needed, like, toolkits that, like, I wanted to have in my own possession that so that I knew where they were. Like, as a coach, you just have so much stuff
Hmm.
on it that
Yeah.
you wanna have access to because you just never know what's gonna happen. Like, I would carry we had, like a first aid kit from the school, but I had, like, my own kit of, like, stuff that I knew that I would need. And, like I said, I had a special toolkit that was just for me, so I would know, like, I had my own little set of poppers just in case I went to open the box that went with that boat and there are no poppers in there. I would be able to go to my set and find poppers. And like, it's those types of things that like can drive you bonkers on race weekend if you're not prepared. But again,
Yeah.
like big backpack and I'd be carrying stuff in both arms. And I remember stealing my kid's wagon at one point. Like I took the radio flyer at one point
Mhm.
just to put all stuff in so that it
Yeah.
wheel it rather than have to like carry it on my person. And then you're not
Yeah.
looking like athletic shoes. You're wearing your rugged boots and
Yeah.
bring those boots for like 14 or 15 hours a day. Like I know like my feet would be throbbing by the time I got back to and then if you're in Philly, you gotta drive home. So it's like
Ugh,
you
yes.
just 15 hours on your feet, and now you get to spend another 6, like, driving yourself home in the dark. It's like,
Oh
w
my gosh.
you do it, you love it, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
love race day. I mean, don't get me wrong, like, that's my favorite day
Yeah.
of the week. Like, I think,
Mhm.
like, I love the training portion of all of it, like, that leads up to it, but nothing like race day. I love the excitement of it. I
Mhm.
I was always one of those coaches, like, inspirational talk at the trailer, inspirational quote as as I shove them off and say, and have let them have a good time. And I just think that there's just so many opportunities for such specialness to happen on race day. That's
Mhm.
why I love it so much. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad you had a good time. I'm glad you had a great doubles race. There's nothing like getting
Yeah.
and she didn't have to steer, right? I hear that you had mentioned the other person was sitting bow, so that takes a little bit of the pressure off of it. You are just the engine room. Like
Yeah.
stare at that stern and make sure you're not, like, affecting the
Mhm.
the course too much as you're pushing, but you're all about the power, let the person behind you worry about
Well,
what's going.
I definitely, like I definitely made a post because I don't think people realize, especially like in the straight boats, how much of a responsibility. I mean, the coxswains too, people don't realize how much responsibility that they have out there
Yeah.
and like how they're in charge of that boat, right? So I definitely made sure to mention that in my thank you to the coaches and everybody because people definitely don't realize like what a responsibility that is because like you're in charge when those kids are out there. It was windy, it was rainy. Like some of these kids, it's the first time that they're bow steering, or I think all of our coxswains have coxed a race before that's in a stake boat, but still some of them are very young still. And definitely some of the bows are like the first time they're bowing in a race, and that's a lot of pressure, and it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of it's a thankless job. So like parents out there, make sure if you get to know who's in your boat that you thank the bow person because they never get any of the glory. The strokesy always gets the glory.
Yeah.
And it's
And they get
like
all the blame. If
they get
something
all
goes
the
wrong,
blame
all the blame, like, if they go off
always.
course, they go into the other
Yeah.
lane, if they have a penalty of some
Mhm.
sort, if they can't get into the stake boat right,
Yeah.
it's all on them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. It's a lot of pressure.
And,
Yeah.
you don't think about it, but, I mean, especially some of these novice kids, they're only, like, 14 or something
Mhm.
like that,
Mhm.
and you're sending them out there with, like, a 60-foot boat. Like,
Yeah, I know.
you're
They
sending
can't
them
even
out.
drive a car yet.
They can't drive a car yet. They probably don't ride a bike because these kids don't get outside all that much. I mean, like, a 60-foot boat, like,
Yeah.
steering it into, like, the stake boats, backing it in, like,
Mhm.
starting the
Yeah.
race, taking the race. I mean, doing the whole race, knowing all the technical things that they need to know about staying in their lane, and it's a lot. It's a lot. I think if the kids thought about it, they would get freaked out. I think, like, a lot of
Yeah.
times with rowing, especially when you learn it when you're young, you just
Mhm.
ignore all the things that are just really crazy about it. The fact that,
Yeah.
like, it's funny because adults will point out these things, like, um, they'll say, "Oh, how deep is the water?" And, like, as a rower who's been rowing for, like, 25 plus years, I'm like, I never think about that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
never even crosses my mind, like, how deep the water is that I'm rowing. I'm just like but,
Oh,
like,
I'm
at the
not
same
getting
time,
that.
it's kinda like, that's a really great question. So, like, I
Yeah.
should care, I guess.
Yeah, I
Like,
know. Yeah.
like, if you got stuck, like, like, they always ask questions about if you got stuck, what would you do? And I'm like, "Stuck?" I'm like, "We're gonna go out, row, and come back." Like, I don't think about
Mhm.
those things. Or like you said, you have a 13 or 14-year-old that you're sending out in a $20,000 boat that's
Mhm.
60 feet long and they don't even drive a car.
Yeah.
Like that,
Right.
like, yeah.
And you're asking, like, most of what they're doing when they're getting into a stake dock,
Mhm.
it's all physics, right? Like, it's all like, if I do this, this will happen. Like,
Yeah.
unless they just memorize it, which is just a lot of information to memorize and to be able to like do like that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you can practice it, which is good, but like I think you really have to understand the physics to make like those quick decisions. Like, if I like you like they get used to it because when they're rowing, they know like, okay, if this side rows harder, this is the way I'm going to go. But then it's reversed in a lot of times, and then when you're we had this whole conversation at the dinner table one day about sculling, and we're like, who in their right minds gave the term sculling, right?
Mhm.
In a stake
Mhm.
deck. Like, it has a completely different meaning in the same exact sport. Like,
Mhm.
who did that?
Yep.
Because I mean, we know in the situation and the context what we're talking about, but like, I'm talking to Keegan because he's a newer rower, and I'm just saying, like, okay, do you know what sculling means? And he's like, well, yeah, mom, it means like that's what I do every day. It's with two oars. And I'm like, no,
Mhm. Yeah.
sculling when you're in a stake boat or a stake
Stake boat,
dock
very different.
it has a different meaning, and you're like, I think you still can do it. I don't know. I haven't rode enough sculling races in a stake dock, if ever, to know if it's still a thing you do. But in a sweep boat, right?
Mhm.
It means like
Pass
taking the
pass the
oar
door up, yeah.
from the person in front of you takes your oar and like moves the boat so it moves this way or that way and it's not this way.
Yep.
And like, whoever came up with that?
I don't
We
know,
need a
I
new
don't
word
know.
for it.
Yeah, we definitely need a new word for it, and it's like one of, like, because what could happen is, like, you could as a coxswain, you could be calling, so say you have 2 take bows or and scull it. You're having, so you've got that person holding their oar and the other oar, you're getting your point, and you have to get that oar back to them
Mhm,
without changing the position of the boat too, so it really
mhm,
takes skill of that bow pair to understand that, well, 3 through, I mean, 3, 2, and 1 have to kind of really
mhm.
understand how to do it without, totally negating what they did and
Yeah.
get their oar back in the water to sit ready. Like, it's like a whole, I mean,
Yeah, if you don't
definitely.
practice it before a race, like, bad on you, coach. Even if you don't get a chance because maybe the weather isn't what you expect it to be, you don't get to get out and never get a chance to do it before the race. Like, I think you need a visual or something to explain it so it's not like the first time that boat is ever being exposed to that idea.
And I mean, I've done it a couple different ways as a coach. So I've anchored a launch before, and like I would do it at the beginning of practice. So I'd anchor the launch, I'd have everybody launch and come out, and they would approach from whatever I forget which, there's a particular side at States even that of the stake boat that you're supposed to approach from. Approach, come in front, pull back in, get locked in, and then they would do a start and head out and do their practice. So I'd have every boat do practice that. Another way that I've done it is, like, we had the bubble dock. So I've
Mhm,
had them launch from our far dock and come back around, and you have to do this, like, on the Genesee River, you have to do this when you don't have any current, otherwise it doesn't work. You can have them pull the boat towards the dock.
mhm.
So the coxswain would, because they'd be facing upriver, the coxswain would swing the boat so then they're facing, like, kind of, like, with the river, and the reason why I can't do this with the current is that it would just move the boat down river. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, if it's nice and still, you can have them pull into the dock, hold onto the dock, and then they can do a first 5 across the river. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I've done it kind of both ways, but it's definitely something that has to be practiced,
Yeah.
and I was always really particular about the coxswains reading the rules and regulations before the actual regatta, like, at the beginning of the week, like, that would be, like, the assignment that I would give, the coxswains, and actually I got into the habit of doing, like, a coxswains practice during winter where we would
Mm.
do the packets from the previous year, because it was nice because we were, training at the school, so we would get a class where one of the coaches would go in there and they would, throughout the season, they would just review, "Okay, we're going to states and it's gonna be like this. We're going to back then it was like the icebreaker, the Chargers race, Pittsford. Like we'd look at maps, we'd look at results from previous years. We'd like because the coxswains need all of that
Yeah.
information. You can't bring them up to speed with a coaches coxswains meeting at the regatta. Like they need to be
Mhm.
hitting the ground running. And if they have a question, it needs to be a real question that they're raising their hand for. That they
Mhm.
realize that this is something that's going to pertain to my boat. I need to ask the officials about this at this meeting. So like I always tried to make sure that the coxswains were prepared because if they don't know all the rules, then they can't make good decisions out there. And then they don't know how
Yeah.
to cast. They don't know what is an actual like protestable event or
Right.
what their penalty would be for like, is there a penalty for crossing the buoys at all? Or can your oars cross? Can your if your hull crosses, like what's that? What does that mean at the particular so they have to know all that stuff way ahead of
Mhm.
time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so true, and so many coaches were never coxswains, right? And I think it's I mean, don't get me wrong, coxswains probably make the best coaches, to be honest.
They
I like the ones,
yeah.
because they have to know all of that, and that all of that is what coaches need to know too. And so I think a lot of times, you get rowers that come back to be coaches, but they just were able to be on teams where they could take that for granted that their coxswains just knew that stuff that they probably didn't even know themselves, and there is a whole other education that coxswains should be getting that probably a lot of them aren't getting and can really make the difference on your team if just in terms of like getting the boats rigged, right? Like managing everything that needs to happen. If you've got coxswains that know what's happening and know the plan and know where boats are supposed to go on the trailer and know which boat needs to get rigged when and de-rigged when, and make sure those rowers are doing it in an efficient way so that not everybody has to stay until the end when they're the last trailer there. Like you can make your team so much more efficient if you take advantage of your coxswains, but they have to know these things and they have to get to the point where they are assertive and confident and can do them in a way that other people will listen to them. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think we could do a whole episode on this, and I think it might be kind of cool to get a coxswain, like somebody who is a coxswain and a coach. I got a couple that I can ask, so that'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I've coxed a handful of times. I've coxed like 2 races, and I do have to say that coxing a race is like one of the most terrifying things to do. Like I was not like it's like the pace of it. Like I did 2 head races and even because it's like 20 I mean, it's like 20 minutes. It's like 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's, like, a lot of time to kind of plan out. It's a
Hmm.
lot of, like there's a lot going on. Um, I mean, you're the only person who can see everything, so, like, you're managing
Right.
with, like, how much information am I providing? Am I talking too much? Am I talking too little? Um, and, like, just, like, not crashing into anything. Like, I mean, especially in an 8, like, an 8
Hmm.
is definitely, like it's a lot. Like, it's just,
Hmm.
like, as you're, like and just even just, like, that constant forward and backward because I did the Rec 8 twice,
Hmm.
so it was like, I was getting thrown around, and, like, I think of the idea of, like, a coxswain not being athletic, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they are
Hmm.
infinitely athletic." It's basically like sitting in basically think about a plank
Hmm.
seated plank type of activity because like any type of like movement and pistoning that you're doing is going to affect your crew. So a lot of coxswains kind of like they hinge forward, they like put their weight against the foot plates that they have. And then like they've got their rudder strings, but you can't hold on to these rudder strings. You have to kind of like be making yourself as stationary as possible in a moving boat that you are not controlling the movement of. Like,
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
complicated. I'd seen a video on YouTube that was like you know how some of the videos, they'll have, like, the camera kind of just a touch behind the
Hmm.
coxswain, and the coxswain, it must've been warm enough, might have been a warm place, was wearing a unisuit. So I could see, like, the way that their muscles
Hmm.
back were, like, activating with every single stroke. So, like, there's definitely, like, work that
Mhm.
like and I would love to kind of dive into, like, what are, like, the fitness requirements of a coxswain? Because there really is a level of fitness to not,
Mhm.
like, get thrown around, to not end up with back pain, to be able to
All
tie
right.
like that kind of crunched up position, or the coxswains that are in that layout
Yeah.
position with the support on their neck, like,
Mhm.
I was talking to a high schooler, and I was like, she's like, "Yeah, like, my neck really hurts because, I'm coxing in this bow cox boat." And she's like, "Do you have any suggestions for me?" And I'm like, "Well, have they adjust the neck rest for you?" And she's like, there it can adjust." I'm like, "Oh, geez." And then I was like, does your boat have, like, foot plates in it? Or, like, how are you keeping yourself from pistoning?" And she's like, "There's nothing in there." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." I'm like,
Mm.
"Why your neck hurts?" I'm like,
Oh, jeez.
there needs to be a
Yeah.
way to keep someone stationary, even if you're
Mhm.
stuffing a half-inflated beach ball in the
Mhm.
bow of a boat that has his foot plates are long gone.
Yeah.
You need to make sure and those back straps, like the actual straps in there, like, coaches, make sure that they're in there. Don't make these kids rest their neck on there without the back strap to hold them up because that's the other piece of what's holding them up, and they need
Mhm.
something that they can, anchor their bodies against. Otherwise, you're losing energy and force from your rowers from this person going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in the boat. So,
Right.
yeah, we definitely have to do a whole coxswains like, episode and, like, dive into it because 'cause I'm not a coxswain, like, I'll
Right.
see one on TV every once in a while, but, like,
Yeah.
someone really needs
Yeah.
somebody, and I have to sit side saddle because my hips are too wide, and I can't fit in anything that's not
Me
stern
too.
cox, so I can only cox an 8 and maybe a 4 at this point, but,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, you wouldn't catch me sliding myself down and
No.
into that death trap. Oh my gosh,
God, no.
like, totally, like, you can't control well, yeah, I guess you can control the speed, you can tell people to slow down, but, I mean,
Mhm.
like, you are basically being torpedoed to the finish line. Another thing that, like, people don't think about, like, we put these kids in the bottom of these boats, and then we're sending them full speed with the kid, like, unprotected, like, in the bow of those boats. I guess that's why they don't have bow cox 8s, right? Like, that's what the myth behind the bow cox 8, like, you don't wanna kill anybody because, like,
Yeah.
ran into it
I
in
think
the
it's
or something.
too I always thought it's because it's too much of the boat that's gonna be behind the coxswain, like, that just seems too dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Like, at least a 4 is not as long and,
Yeah, the force, yeah, like, the balance of all
Yeah.
of it, yeah, but, yeah.
Yeah, with the yeah, who knows?
I love a stirring hot score, like, I'm all about it, like,
Yeah.
I will especially even for teaching purposes, um,
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
I
Mhm.
love when a coxswain can learn in the stern coxed for because the bow cox is definitely a different environment and being in, like and it turns it into from a visual activity, it turns it into an auditory activity because you have to be able to hear those catches, you have to
Yeah.
it becomes a tactile activity because you have to be able to feel what is
Yeah.
going on, where's the distance
Mhm.
and if you don't know what your rowers already were doing when you were watching them, like, if you didn't know 3 seats always late to the catch and rushes the last quarter of the slide, you
Yeah.
can't call for that correction when you feel it in the bow
Mhm.
because you can't see it. So,
Right. Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
We should probably wrap up. I don't wanna keep you all day
Yeah.
because I could talk talk rowing all day. But we've got some merch to
Yes, me
order
too.
though. Yeah, like, we need to find somebody to talk about, food tents, and we need to
Food
find some
tents, yep.
coxswains who'll give us some coxswains and coaches. Coxswain
Mhm.
turn coach is,
Yeah.
that would be a really great talk because it'd be interesting for us to kind of see the ins and outs of that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. Yeah, I hope everybody was okay with my rant today. I love Saratoga rowing. You guys do a great job. That rant was specifically just about the live stream. So, just putting it out there, just putting my feelings and opinions out there, but,
I
you know,
agree, I agree.
it
It
is what
should be
it is.
something that you could have easy access to, especially when there's low internet
Yeah.
too, when it's not gonna be reliable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Adrienne. Well, have a good week.
Have a great week, and we'll catch up again next week. Alright?
All right. Sounds good.
Alright.
Bye.
Bye.